All right, we are back. My microphone is finally working, and let's just wait for YouTube to come on. All right, so this is more of kind of like an ad hoc post here, not really intending it to be a podcast post, rather just to show up and kind of give you, share some life experience with you so that maybe it helps you in your day and whatever you're going forward. But I will give you the podcast intro just in case I do decide to post this. So, hi guys, my name is Donnie Rouse, and you are listening to the podcast One Life, your turbulent life. When life throws you something that's unexpected, how do you respond to it? Does that unexpected thing throw off your life where all of a sudden now trying to keep up with all the other responsibilities becomes a chore and a task? And when these things come up, it's important to understand what your go-to reaction is to them, because by understanding your reaction, you could start to create a plan as to, or maybe some questions as to how to get more clarity and to become conscious of this pre-conditioned response you have. So let me just ask you that. When life throws you something unexpected, when there is something that comes up that is beyond your control, how do you respond? Do you get, caught into this frenzy of worry? Do you think of the worst case scenario? How do you respond? And then the second question I'm going to ask you is, in those times where you've noticed, right? Then you know what your preconditioned response is. How often does it turn out not to be the way that you thought it would be? Like, when has the outcome not turned out to be what your worst case scenario was, but actually turned out to be something better? But the entire experience has been literally, you feel off because your entire experience was, just put you through a lot of like tension, a lot of frustration, a lot of anxiety. And then you come out on the other end realizing that, you just were creating all this in your mind. And then lastly, what questions can you figure? Knowing that this is indeed a possibility, what questions can you ask yourself to help you see this other side that is just as likely as this negative thing that you're painting in your mind? The inspiration for this post here comes from, I just came back from, I was going to use the plane ride as an example, and I guess I will start with that. I was flying from Miami to Washington, D.C., and as it turns out, the last few flights that I've had coming back from Miami back to home have all been during tropical storms. So it's freaking insane. I've never experienced turbulence so consistently as I have since I moved to Florida. And when I was flying back this most recent time, the storm had just passed through Florida and moved up the coast. And when I was going into DC, the pilots were attempting to land, but the winds were very, very strong. Like, I don't even know, I think they said like 60 miles an hour, something like that. So whenever the pilot was coming down, he was attempting to land, all of a sudden the wind would come in and it would throw the plane sideways. And you would hear the thrusting of the engines like revving up. And all of a sudden at the last minute, he would put full thrust in the engines and the plane would go all the way back up very, very fast, circling around only to attempt to do it again. This attempt for landing happened several times, and everyone on the plane was just like, holy shit, like, when are we gonna land? Like, when is this thing actually gonna happen? And thankfully, he eventually landed the plane. And then after that, I connected 1 hour, and then I had to get on another plane, and I went to New York. And it was very much the same thing. We were flying through some of the storm, and the pilot was getting ready to land, and I noticed you couldn't see anything. We're descending, and it was just clouds all around us. And the plane was being tipped back and forth. And once we broke through the clouds and visibility, you were able to have some visibility, we were literally right about to hit the runway. So essentially, the pilot was landing the plane blind. And at the very, very end, everyone has clapped, which I hadn't heard in a while, because he successfully landed this plane. This experience got me thinking a lot about life and just how when things don't go your way, or when something unexpected happens, like what is the response to it? My response, so 1 month ago, I flew out from Miami back up to Westchester County, and I experienced the same thing. I went through a tropical storm, and as a result of going through that storm, I felt like I had no control. I had said my prayers, gave my, made my peace, and then we landed. And then this time, after going through that same experience, I felt more at ease. And what I say is that you tend to go towards that worst case scenario, so like the worst thing that's going to happen. But it rarely ever happens like that. We like to create, I think, I'm sure I'm not the only one, where you create a bigger story in your mind as to what is going on, when in reality, this is just like an everyday thing, right? It's not the first time they've ever flown through like high winds or weather that causes a turbulence, right? That's what planes are made for. And it got me thinking about that. Is just the giving the trust to know that, things will turn out for the better. Like this turbulent, it's a metaphor for life. Like the turbulence that you feel in life, like the planes were made to withstand this turbulence. You were made to withstand the turbulence of your life, to come out of the other side stronger than before. And so that's why when I think about certainty, I think about having to give complete trust over to the pilots, and realizing that it's not within your control. So the essence of this story here is just for you to understand that the turbulence that you experience in life, it's there to help you grow, to make you stronger. As I had mentioned, like when I did that first plane a month ago, the first ride, like I was shitting my pants, to be honest with you. I was really nervous as we were taking off, and the plane was shaking in ways I never thought possible for a plane. But then after having that experience, all of a sudden now, going through this next experience, it didn't feel like anything. I felt more at peace because I had experienced something before, and I know I know that the planes are well equipped to handle this type of turbulence. I'll give you one more story. And this is with regard to, the uncertainties of life. I could have two stories I can use. I could use the apartment experience that I'm currently going through, or I could use the one where I just got an MRI done of my abdomen and pelvis. Which one do I want to use? We'll use the pelvis one. That's the first thing that came to my mind. So a few months back, I went to the doctor because I had, for a while, I was experiencing this uneasy feeling. My stomach had felt unsettled. And I went to the doctor and said, I'm not sure what it is, because sometimes it feels like it's a little bit firmer on one side. And she's like, all right, well, let's get a CAT scan. And I was like, all right, a CAT scan. I spoke to one of my friends. She's like, you do not want to get a CAT scan. I was like, well, why don't I want to get a CAT scan? She's like, well, because a CAT scan will give you, I can't remember how many times the radiation. It's like 10 to 20 times the radiation, I don't remember, of a chest scan, which is a lot of radiation. I remember after doing research, I researched, and it said one CAT scan, you could have a total of, I can't remember if they said 10 CAT scans in your life or something like that, or 20 CAT scans. I don't remember the exact, I apologize. I need to move my camera over here. But that one CAT scan, or 10 CAT scans, was the equivalent to being in ground zero. Oh, hold on one second. Ground zero of Hiroshima, so within 2 miles of it. So when I thought about that, I was like, oh my God, this is friggin' scary. And I didn't want to be exposed to any of the radiation. So it literally sent my mind on this loop, and I was going to places where I didn't want to be, where I just went into this frenzy. And not to mention, this whole experience of thinking well, what could it be? What could be causing this feeling in my abdomen? So I started going through all these different thoughts in my mind, like, oh my God, is it cancer? Worst case scenario, is it cancer? When before getting the MRI, I came back, I had a meeting with a surgeon. The surgeon's like, my primary care physician told me that I had a hernia. So I went back to meet a surgeon. Surgeon's like, you do not have a hernia. I've been doing this for how many years? There's no hernia. Went back to my doctor again. He's like, you have a hernia. I stand by the first. And the reason I'm bringing this up is, since that time, I just had the MRI today, but since that last visit with the doctor, all that stuff that I was feeling with in my abdomen completely subsided. Not even a trace of it left. And the hernia, like once in a while, if I sneeze, I might feel like a little bit of poke in my groin area, or if I cough very, very hard, or if I'm doing some squats. So I have a feeling that there probably is something there, but it's probably not, it's not a need for concern at this moment. But the MRI will give me full detail. And the reason I tell you this is because when the doctor had said like, oh, you need to get an MRI, and my mind immediately went towards like what the worst possibility could be. So I did what every person will do, right? You start to self-diagnose by going on Google, and like Google be your doctor. So I went on there, and as I was down there, I started to read symptoms of all these different things, and I started literally feeling all those symptoms. It just goes to show you the power of your mind. And at that moment, I went back down to Florida, and my mind was taking off. It was taking off all that stuff that I was feeling in my abdomen. As a result of my mind not focusing on what was going on there, guess what happened? Everything I was experiencing completely dissipated. So where focus goes, energy flows. You've heard me say that before. And then coming back here, I go to get the MRI, and then some people comment, they're like, oh, I hope it's nothing. Hope your MRI went well. Hope it's nothing worse. And making comments, then all of a sudden my mind was like, all right, here we go again, rev up. But then I took a step back. I was like, you know what? No, we've already gone there. We don't need to go there again. And I tell you this for a couple of reasons. One is just to be careful as to what you take in, without without having full clarity as to what it is that's going on, right? In the instance, to use the metaphor of like what I experienced, it's the instance of having, your MRI done. You don't have, until you have a clear understanding of what it is that's going on, you don't need to go off, start going down that dark tunnel. Like the quote says, a courageous man dies once, a coward dies 1,000 times. Meaning, as you're going through when you're looping all the stuff in your head, you're dying literally 1,000 times. But it makes sense to wait until you know exactly what it is before you start to have any kind of concern. And then dealing with the uncertainty. So after I had, in the time I was waiting to get the MRI done, I had to sit in uncertainty, because I was waiting for the MRI to get approved by my insurance company. And it's like, well, how do you manage that? The same thing is, one, you got to have some faith. You got to trust that everything is going to work out. Otherwise, you'll put yourself in a frenzy. And two, just realizing that there's only so much you could control, and not allowing your mind to focus, to get so far off track that you don't recognize you stop recognizing all the beautiful things that are already in your life. So to bring it all back around, right? We're talking about turbulence. We're talking about certainty and having uncertainty. Like, going back to the main points that I want to leave you with here. The one thing is, recognize that you are built for more, that you are built to handle anything that life throws at you. And that it's by going through these uncertainties, these turbulent times, which is actually strengthening you and giving you the resilience, because it's giving you, in essence, like a benchmark to say, well, listen, I got through this, and I realized I can get through. If I can get through this, then I can get through anything. And also, I realized through that experience that let's wait until we have clarity, and then take action from that clarity, rather than just rushing into something because you're afraid or you don't have all the facts. And then secondly is just being conscious of your mind, where your mind's going, because where you put your focus is what you're going to feel. And to make sure that you're putting your mindset on what it is that you want, the desired outcome, not what you're afraid of, because as a result of doing that, that's exactly what you're attracting to yourself. So going back to the beginning of the questions, like, where does your mind typically go to? because awareness is extremely important and will help you, because when you are aware of what your typical tendencies are regarding uncertain things that pop up in your day, now all of a sudden you can start to develop a plan and develop some questions just to pull you out of there. So this way you don't run in that loop, because I'm telling you that loop is exhausting. Because it takes your focus, you're focusing on the problem rather than focusing on the life that you want to create for yourself. So when you know that you're starting to go down that path, ask yourself, do I have all the information necessary to even to make a diagnosis or to come up with an opinion on something or a stance? Very likely it is not. You do not have all of the information. The next thing is just start to get clarity, get the information. And then just ask yourself, well, what questions can I ask that will put me back in control, that will start making me feel better about what's going on, rather than say, what is wrong, or what's wrong, or why does this always happen to me? Questions like, well, why does this always happen for me? Right? Look for the positive in this and how it's building you up. I mean, that's how I've been going through the challenges and experiences over the last few months. Has been looking for how the situations are working for me. And it's not to say that I'm not going to lie and tell you that it's been easy and that it's been that I've dealt with it that I've dealt with it in a way that hasn't been stressful. I'd be lying to you. But I will say, with all honesty, by looking at it from a stance of that, it's there to benefit me, that it's happening for me, and that there is a greater learning that's coming on. Like, I don't regret any of the experiences I'm having on. And I say that 100% with honesty, because I've learned so much about myself in the process, as well as how to move forward when these types of things pop up, because they will pop up, right? There's one thing that's guaranteed in life. It's constant change. It's that you will, hit these snags again and again. And the most important thing when you hit these snags is how you respond. So this has definitely equipped me with a better response for things to come. So I do not regret it for 1 second. And I hope that through this podcast, or through this post right here, that you will look at those things that are popping up in your life as opportunities to grow, as opportunities to become more aware of what it is your typical tendencies are, but also to become more aware of where it is you want to point your compass and where you want to go, because that is ultimately what it's, where you're going to be headed. You got to put your focus where you want to go. So I hope you enjoyed this post. I hope this provides some value for you. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, and remember, you only get one life. Live fully, live passionately, and most of all, live now. God bless you guys, and I will see you again soon.